Hello weavers, Kathy from Rock Lake Weaving. Today we're going to be tying on a warp as part of dressing the loom. As you can see, I've already threaded my warp. I'm warping back to front, and I've also slayed the reed. I've got all my little knots here, and these are not necessarily even sections. I've just put in little slip knots to keep anything from getting pulled back through the reed and averting any disasters. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of my knots, my slip knots out, just because that makes things a little bit easier in the long run for me. Now, this warp is a lovely linen, which is a really, really nice fiber. There's not a lot of stretch in it, so getting an even tension to start is really important with a linen warp. Now I've got my apron rod. It's a little far forward, so I'm going to move it back a little bit. And the goal here is I want to have this tied on with not too much waste and very, very even tension. So I've got the middle of my loom marked here, and I generally tend to do groups of about an inch or so. So I'm just going to guesstimate. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly an even number of ends on either side. Close enough is good enough in this case. So I always start with the middle, because then I find that that holds my apron rod up and gets me a good start. So this is a modified Lark's head knot. I'm going to do the first one fairly quickly just to get the apron rod set up, and then I'll show you the details in more detail on the next ones. So there's my first beginning. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to alternate sides. I'm going to go left, right, left, right, left, right. You can do right, left if you want to, totally up to you. So I'm going to grab my next section. Now, because this is a linen warp, I need really even tension. So I'm just going to kind of comb it out with my fingers a little bit. And I'm going to take a look here. I'm going to make sure that I don't have any loose threads. If there was a thread like this, I don't want that. That's going to affect the quality of my weaving later on. So I get everything nice and straight and even. I'm going to split the group in about half. And then this is a modified Lark's head knot. So the way that I do it is I reach underneath with 3 fingers. I take 2 sections on each side like this, and then I pull them underneath. Then I separate my sections. I'm going to line these up fairly straight from the reed. And I'm going to do the beginning of a surgeon's knot, which is like an overhand knot. So I'm going to cross it over once and twice. Then I'm just going to tighten it up a little bit. Now, I'm not making this really tight right now. The surgeon's knot helps everything hold in place. It doesn't slip, which is a really nice feature for this, because right now I'm focusing on just attaching the warp to the beam. I'm not worrying about perfect tension as long as everything in each group is even. So I'm going to continue on. I'm going to move my tails out of the way here. And again, I'm going to pull it under, split it. There's a little loose thread, so I'm just going to kind of comb that, make sure they're nice and even. And I'm looking here as well to make sure that I don't have any loose threads right here either. There we go. So I find that these smaller sections, you can do bigger sections if you want to. If you have a very thick thread that you're using for your warp, you can use larger sections. The reason I choose approximately 1-inch sections is because I'm not perfect and I make mistakes like we all do, and that's okay. And when I do, it's less disruptive to the warp if the sections are a little bit smaller. So that means that if I make a mistake in this section, I only have to undo a small amount, and it's just a little easier to pinpoint where any issues are. And let's be honest, nobody's perfect. There's going to be mistakes. If there isn't, do a little happy dance and tell your friends online about it, because it's fairly unusual to get a perfect warp. This particular warp, I'm not expecting too many errors because I'm working on napkins. And as part of this process, it's a new design that I came up with, and I haven't done it before. So I've already done several sample napkins. I tried different ends per inch, a different set for each one. And I was just playing around, looking at the quality of the napkins. I wanted a bit of a rustic feel, so I didn't want it to be too tight and smooth, but I wanted it to be have a nice feel in my hand. So I had it threaded originally. I checked for errors, fixed the ones that I found, because of course there were some. And then after that, I wove one napkin and wet finished it, because the true tell of a fabric is after wet finishing. You never really know what it's going to be like. So I wove one napkin, wet finished it, wasn't entirely happy with it, so I pulled all the threads out of the reed. I left the threading, and I reslayed to a different set. Wove a napkin, finished it, still wasn't happy with it, so I reslayed to another set and wove another one. And then I decided that the second set that I did was the best one. So I have 3 really lovely sample napkins that gave me a lot of information about the design that I was working on and the qualities of this particular linen. So I'm just about done here. I got the last one, so we get our surgeon's knot there. So all of the ends are attached to my apron rod. I can check here, make sure that I haven't missed any ends. There's nothing hanging back here. I can also check back here between the reed and the heddles, make sure I haven't missed it slaying anything. Now's a good time to find that out. So now, these are all attached, and it's hard to tell on video, but they're different tensions. So this one is quite loose, this one's a little tighter. We want even tension all the way across. So the beauty of this little lark's head knot with the surgeon's knot is that nothing slips and it's very easy to adjust. So the way that I do it is I've got my brake on, so my warp beam isn't going to go forward. I'm going to pull it forward and pull the tails apart, and that's going to tighten that. And I'm going to go just gently all the way across from one end to the other. And I'm not looking for super high tension here. The goal of this is just getting even tension all the way across on all of the threads as much as possible. And that's one of the beauties of hand weaving, is it's never quite perfect. So every piece has its own personality, which is kind of a nice thing. I like it. I think it's a hallmark of hand weaving. Right, so it's fairly even now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my beater forward. I find this gives me a better gauge of the tension. And I'm just going to press gently with my hand all the way across. And I can feel that right here in this section here is a little loose. So I'm just going to put my hand right here. I know it's these sections. I can feel it here as well. So I'm just going to tighten those ones up a little bit more. And I'm going to feel again. I'm going to run my hand across a couple of times. I know that you can't feel this through video, but when you do this, you will be able to feel it. There's going to be tighter sections and looser sections. And I'm pretty happy with how this is right now. So I'm going to go across again, now from the other direction. And I'm going to tighten them up one more time. And this is the time to take your time. So if you get a good tie on and you have good tension on your work, nice and even, not necessarily high tension, but nice and even, it will make the rest of your weaving far more enjoyable. There will be less mistakes, there will be less skips to fix later, and it's just going to be a nicer finished product. Now, I'm going to try that again. Yeah, I'm very happy with that. That's really nice and even. So the next thing I'm going to do is I need to secure this. These surgeon knots are quite secure, but linen can be a little bit slippery, and I am going to put a fair amount of tension on this warp. So what I'm going to do, the next step, I'm going to make sure that surgeon knot is ready. I'm going to cross it over. I'm going to pull this through, but I'm not going to pull it through for a knot. I'm going to leave it with my baby finger. I'm going to make it a slip knot. So we'll do that again. I'm going to pull it through, grab it with my fingers. I'm just hooking it on my pinky finger. And then my long tail, tighten up. So what this is doing is this is securing the knots where they are, which I'm happy with, which is a good thing. And the benefit of this is that it is easy to take out. So the next thing that I'm going to do once I've got all this finished is I'm going to lift my shafts in order. I'm going to look for any crossed threads, anything that might come up as an error. And I'm tying these not particularly tightly. They don't have to be very tight. They do need to be secure, but I'm not really putting all my effort in. I'm not going to end up with a blister on my fingers because I'm tying on. It doesn't need to be that tight. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lift my harnesses. I'm going to check for errors. I know there aren't any in here because this has been threaded for a while. However, let's pretend there's an error in this section. I've got a cross thread. I've missed a dent in my reed or something. So what I can do is I can just simply pull this out. So now my slip knot's out and I've just got my surgeon knot. The nice thing with the surgeon's knot is to take it out, I don't have to reach in here and try and grab the right threads and pick it out. Because when I'm tying it, I'm going right over left, left over right, left over right. I'm going to take my left side and I'm going to pull it to the side like this. And you see how it just folded over there? That means that it's loosened. And now I can grab the other side right here and gently but easily undo that knot. So we're going to pretend I've got an error here. I'm going to take this out. We'll pretend my error's here. I'm going to go ahead and fix that, whatever that happens to be. Now, my error is now fixed. So I need to tie it back on. So I'm just going to tie it on exactly the same way. It's a little awkward. Sometimes I have fairly large hands, so you do need to be a little careful. But again, I'm going to make sure that my threads are all lined up and evenly tensioned. And I'm going to do this again. So I've got it crossed over. I'm going to wrap that one around, wrap it around again, pull it tight. So I can feel here, I'm just comparing, again, this isn't a tight tension right now. I just want even tension. So let's see. Yeah, that feels really good. If I wanted to tighten it, I can pull it forward like this and tighten that down. If I want to loosen it, I do the same thing I did to undo it, pop that knot over, loosen it up a little bit, and now I've got a really loose section. Double check that one more time. That needs to be a little bit tighter. There we go. There. That's better. Tie that slip knot again, and now I'm ready to go. Thanks so much. I hope this is helpful. Happy weaving.